Welcome back to Sparks and Recreation. Today we're going to talk about the long version of how to start with nothing and get to a little bit of something. I'm not just like saying this because I feel like saying it. I literally get messages about this all the time. I have friends on Facebook message probably 10 times a year asking what they can do to get to the same thing. Most recently, yesterday, somebody was like, I can never afford to get car parts. How do you afford to do the things you do? So this is the long story of starting with nothing, getting to something with some details you can use in your own life. So, not to be one of those like gurus where I'm going to tell you some pyramid scheme or any bullshit like that. Started off right out of high school just delivering pizzas and working like 3 different jobs. My dad did help me get a job at a hospital. It has nothing to do with what we do today, pushing wheelchairs. Um, then my uncle helped me scrub floors at the local nuke plant for like $20 an hour about 15 years ago. We got married at 18, had a kid at 19, so pretty much anything that I had went to the family, and I totally understand where you're coming from, where it's like I had no money to do anything. I drove around beater cars for years and years and years, and so basically what would happen is I would only make like maybe like $20,000 a year between all these things and working 2-3 jobs, and what we relied on was tips. So I always would work jobs where it's like pizza delivery or whatever, and say you made $50 a night. Instead of spending any of that, I would just put it away. Um, Alice, my wife, who is the accountant for the business, is the best money saver ever, so I can't take like all of the credit or anything like that. It's mainly her that found ways to save the money. Um, where we got to today, the big jump, the big leap is my father had opened a barbecue restaurant that did okay. It barely broke even, and in that we kind of learned how to actually run a business properly. So seeing money come in, money go out, how to advertise, how to run a social media. I wasn't making money there. I mean, we made $11 an hour there. So if you want to say that that's like what started everything, then I guess whatever. But that's not accurate at all. We had taken what was going to be like a $10,000 investment to try to put towards the business to keep it going and lucrative and buy new equipment. And the business ended up just closing down because the building was falling in. There's a long story as to why that didn't work out. My father had a piece of property that they had paid, I think they paid like $7,000 or something like that for it. So basically, when everything closed down right after I put a bunch of money into it, the plan was if I just bought the property back from him because he was in a position where he didn't really want it. It wasn't, they had it for sale, nobody was buying it. It was like a year and a half, so I just bought it for what my investment was into the other business. This is at the age of 26. We are 32 now, so going on. This is gonna be my 7th year of being a car dealer, which that's obviously what we're talking about here now at this point is being a car dealer. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna check to make sure that I'm actually in frame. So at this point, you're like, cool, Justin, you were poor like everybody, and you probably still are poor. How did you get to this? Do you have any right to tell people what to do? Well, over the course of that time, I learned a few valuable skills, which are working with people and learning how to actually sell a product. So when you go to a car dealership, like the most important thing is that they're not buying the car, they're buying you, where basically you can have all the money in the world and start a car dealership and you might not succeed. I 100% believe that the entire thing it boils down to like 3 things. So they're buying you, not the car. You need to know what you're talking about more than they do, and you have to have basically a cult following in your town. Like you have to have the people that when you go to, you can't walk through Walmart and be like this the whole time because you're scared of running into people. So how do you get to that point? Well, first off, I took our total investment of starting the car dealership was about $30,000. It took us 5 years to save that money. So we bought the property. We got our first batch of cars, and it cost about $10,000 to get your first set of insurances, surety bonds. So this is in New York State. I don't know where you're from. You got to look up your laws and regulations. Some states are easier than others. So there's some states where it doesn't require much of anything besides just a shed, and you get $1,000 surety bond, so you can be in maybe $5,000 and start up. Some places you have to own your property. It has to be paved. It has to be like at least a double wide. Like it has to be a built stick and mortar property. Luckily, New York is not like that. So say you're looking to get in to become a dealer. So the question that's asked a lot is, what do? You just go buy a bunch of luxury cars, and obviously you're going to make a ton of money on those, and that's how you get money. That's not true at all. And the other misconception is that you're going to go into it and you're just going to finance everybody, and you're going to do the buy here, pay here. You're going to do it. So for us, we have never done a buy here, pay here. I've never financed a customer at all. I only do cash, cashier's check, or certified money order. Those are the only ways you can buy a car from me. I am not your babysitter. I'm not your dad. I'm not your best friend that's going to be loaning you money and hoping you pay me back. When you leave that car, I've been paid, and the deal's done. I don't have to think about it again. There's a lot of dealers that get caught up in this idea where you're going to send out 100 cars and they're each going to bring you $50 a week and you're going to get rich. I've seen so many dealerships fail. So I'm like friends with a couple different dealers and on a few dealer pages. I would say 70% of dealerships fail within the first 3 years. That business model does not work because you can't trust people. The people that have a 300 credit score, they're not going to come back and give you $50 a week. It's just, they're not. So anyways, nitty gritty. Takes about 30 grand at minimum. How are you going to get your first year done? So I worked both jobs for about 8 months. Had my phone on at all times. I had to sign up over at the dealership. And luckily in New York, you're allowed to run by appointment. So I would work 40 hours a week at the pizza shop. I would also work 40 hours a week at the dealership. We did that for the first 8 months until we had enough cars rolling out where I could make $600 a week, which at this point that would never cover what we've grown into, but that at the time it was enough. So basically you can't just take every dollar that you get and just spend it. You have to have sacrifice. You have to take the time to grow. I don't know if you can see it, there's a minivan over here I've had for 4 years. I drove a car I got for free that nobody cared about. It's like a piece of crap Dodge Caravan. I drove that for years and years. I didn't have money to fix my Dart, or I didn't have, I bought that for $800. There's a video you can watch forever ago. People thought we had money because I had that, but that's a piece of crap. The true making money in the car business relies on, you need to know the vehicle very well. I only sell 2 types of cars at this point. I sell Mopars and Subarus, and forever we only sold Subarus because I grew up knowing Subarus. It's the only thing I knew how to fix. When you become a car dealer and you have this whole world of cars come at you, you can choose from. Everybody always I've always wanted a C-Class Mercedes. I'm gonna go buy one. I've always wanted an M3. I'm gonna go buy an M3. Those cars are not reliable cars to sell at a car dealership. And the misconception too is that there's more money in them. There's not. Most cars at auction, there's only at most a few $1,000s of profit at the end of the day. And every time that car breaks or there's an issue that you didn't know about, your profits dwindle away. So you can't just look cool with all your fancy cars out front. You'll notice those places close down just as fast as the next one. The reason I chose Subarus is because I knew the common issues. If I go in an auction and I hear what sounds like rod knock, but I know it's a timing tensioner, that you can get that car much cheaper and then just do a timing job on it, and now you have a couple $1,000s profit. And you got to remember too that every time you make profit, once you're successful, the government's taking almost 40% of every dollar that you make. So when you hear $2,000 profit, it's really not. After your lights, your employees, whatever, you're maybe making $800 a car. Year 1, we made, I think, less than $20,000. Year 2, we made about $60,000. Year 3, we're finally getting into that 6-figure mark. And now we're into year 7, so if you can kind of watch the exponential growth, you can just assume what we're doing at this point. 3 years ago, we decided to open a repair facility. So not only are we doing the car dealership, we also have the repair side. That makes up about 40% of our total income at this point. So if I was doing that with the cars and add the repairs, then you see where this is going. That's important too, because like I said, those 3 things, you have to know the vehicle more than the guy that's coming. It's just the reality of it. If you're doing a bunch of different cars, there's no way you're going to know more than everybody about each of those individual cars. Say you got an Explorer over there, you got a Tahoe, you got some like old Jaguar or something. You're not as the people that are coming for those cars normally know what they're talking about, and they're gonna see right through you. If you got a whole thing full of Subarus and they pull in, they're like, "Oh, my car makes a weird noise," and you can be like, "Oh, I know what's wrong with your car," and they're like, "How do you know that? My mechanic didn't even know." And then you sell them a car, they're gonna trust that 100 times more than somebody that's just bullshitting and they can see through it. And another thing is, when it comes to owning the dealership, when small bad things happen, you have to take care of them because the bad name will come and bite you in the ass. So there's a dealer down the road from us that he was moving cars faster. Like, he was selling so many cars. He's doing like 20 a month right off the bat. The problem is that very quickly, within like 2-3 months, all you see is just the hate online. So he was selling them, but not standing behind them at all, which, I mean, whatever. If that's how you want to run and be ruthless, it is what it is. But the problem is that locally, everybody starts saying, "Don't go to that place." It is what it is. It put a bad taste out there. I've specifically for the last 7 years tried to make sure that everything I do, unless it's an extreme case where they're just trying to take advantage of me, I stand behind the cars I sell. This is why we go through them pretty seriously before we sell them. Recon is important. Be it on a Subaru, every single one I get in goes on a rack. We're checking to make sure head gaskets are good. We're making sure that the common spots where they rot out is good. I'm not ever gonna fill something with like Rhino liner and just like send it because it looks like it's not rotted out. You gotta make sure they're solid, clean cars that are gonna last a couple of years. And the price point. A lot of people ask about the price point. I sell anything between like 3,000 and 8,000, and that's about it. Once in a while we'll sell like an STI or like an SRT8 Charger or something like that is a little more expensive. But our bread and butter, 3,000 to 8,000. You're in cheap. So the thing is that when you buy these cars, whether wholesale, auction, whatever, there's no guarantee on it. So you're gonna get screwed just as bad on a $3,000 car as you do a $30,000 car. Just because it's more expensive doesn't mean you're not gonna get screwed. So if my total risk is less than like 3,000, you know what I have into the car, if it's a complete dud, I can just turn it into a parts car, sell the motor, and normally get out of it. If it's a $30,000 car and the thing turns out it's got some major electrical issue, whatever, and the profit margin was still only 2,000 or 3,000 on it, where are you really at? You're not doing yourself any favors. The only one benefit to that is that most likely a $30,000 car is going to last a long time, and the customer is going to be happy for a long time. But the cars that are coming through that are in that price range are just as bad as the old ones. And especially with the prices going up exponentially in the last little while, you're going to end up just buried in all these cars that, one, nobody can come to your lot and finance themselves. Like personally, you're going to have to find a finance company. It's going to hit them with 24.9% because no real banks work with small dealers. The misconception is that I'm just going to get set up with financing and I'm going to sell every car there is. Big banks like Capital One, Chase, none of those guys work with independent dealers. You have to be a franchise dealer that has like millions of dollars in your bank account before they even look at you. You're going to be stuck with Westlake, Credit Acceptance, all these places that are basically loan sharks that screw over the poor people. I don't want to be known as that guy. That's why we have a good name in this little town we live in, because I have not sent anybody out in a car that's worth $3,000 that's financed for 10 over the course of 6 years at 24.9. That is the dumbest shit, and that's how you get a bad name as a dealer. If you go onto our Facebook or our Google, you'll see that there's tons of people that bought cars and very few that are angry at me. That's the way to do it. I guess to sum everything up, no more than the customer. Don't make a bad name for yourself. Make sure that the inventory you're sourcing you're actually looking at, and your total you need to save. Like, I don't know how to make this any more important, but like, I literally drove shit for a very long time before I had anything nice. We had a couple cheap projects we picked up here or there. Yes, we might have had like 10 personal cars, but none of them are all that nice. Still, they're not super nice. It costs, put it in perspective, like operating costs are $500,000 at this point just to stay open for a year. So if I take all the money we make and just spend it, you're left with nothing. And it's the same way whether it's a $30,000 first year or a $10,000 first year. Patience, the sweat equity, and all that will pay off eventually when you have a name for yourself. At this point, I literally do not even advertise. And most of these guys use CarGurus, CarsForSale.com, Carfax, all that shit. I don't. I put one $5 ad on Craigslist every 2 weeks, and then I use our Facebook page. That's it. A shipment of cars come in, there's people that just know that, like, Monday through Friday, if they pull into that place that has the Subarus, they're going to be able to leave with a Subaru. And new ones come in all the time. So slowly building your reputation over time is more important than just bumping out, paying a ton of money for advertising where nobody knows your name, nobody trusts you. Nobody's going to trust when they go online and you just bought all the main ads. What they're going to trust is when their buddy's like, hey, I heard what's his name down there sold whatever car, it's been down there for 3 years and he's been a good guy, the car's lasted a long time. That goes a lot farther than just being the first guy in the list when they go to search for a car. Word of mouth and person-to-person advertising is far more valuable, but the problem is it takes a long time to get to that point. So you got to grind for those, like, 5 years until the point it becomes easy. Yeah. So that's kind of our little story here. I'm sure I missed the entire point of what you were asking, but hopefully you picked up something from that that's actually usable information. Know what you're talking about. Do not just go buy all the shit that you see at auction that you've always wanted. I did do that the first year or two, and that's why we didn't make a lot of money. I was buying 7 Series BMWs and all these things that there's no money in them, and they're piece of shit cars. That's why they're at the auction. You need to buy things that you understand, things you know. And there is one other benefit to that. When cars run wholesale, whether you're buying it right from a franchise dealer, we buy most of our cars at this point from franchise dealers instead of running around the auctions and trying to find out what's good and what's bad. I buy them directly right from the dealership. When I hear one that has rod knock, I know what's wrong with it. Sometimes the cars you think you're buying that look perfect, there's a reason that they're there anyway. You're almost better off knowing the vehicle, having a way to fix it, and buying one that has rod knock so you know that's why that car is traded in, the blue motor. Rather than, oh, it seems perfect, but it has a $5,000 electrical gremlin that nobody can deal with. You see what I'm saying? Like, sometimes there's benefits to buying something that's known broke instead of what looks perfect. I guess that's my final advice, and thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe.